When I did videos for my old Canon film cameras, the A1 and T90, I didn't mention anything about remote switches, and I was reminded of this by a comment that someone left in the T90 video. So hopefully this short video will make up for that omission. With old film cameras like the A1, the remote cable release was nothing more than a Bowden cable which screwed into the top of the shutter release. These are exactly the same things that are used on bicycles to operate gears and brakes. It's just a cable that moves inside a hollow outer casing. Very simple. I can't show you an example because I left all my old film gear in the UK in 2003 when I started a new life in Asia. So that's where it all is. And these things were easy to get, cheap, and came in different lengths. The T90 was a lot more electronic, and that didn't use a Bowden cable. It used one of these, which is, let's just get it in the camera. This is a Canon remote switch 60T3. It was used with the T-series cameras and also with a few early EOS models. And it's actually very similar to a more modern design. This is the Canon RS 80N3, which I used for my 40D when it was still working. It's now defunct. When you get one of these, it's not completely obvious where it goes in the camera. On the right hand side of the camera, at the front bottom, there's a small cap, and you need to just unscrew that cap, and then you'll see the T3 socket. And the plug can only go one way, and to help you with the orientation, there's a red dot on the plug and a red dot on the body. So you just line those two up and screw in the connector. Okay, and the switch works exactly the same way as the shutter release button. So it's got two positions. You can press it half down to get a meter reading, and then you can press it fully down to release the shutter. Oh, the shutter just went, if you heard that. Yeah, easy to use. The purpose of using it is just to minimise vibration. Obviously, if you're doing a long exposure shot, or some situation where you don't want to move the camera, you don't want to actually touch the body, you can just use this cable to reduce any vibration. So let's turn the camera off, take the cable out, and then put the little cap back in again. For remote use, there were also some other accessories that Canon made. For the old A1, there was something called an LC1, which was a remote remote switch activated by infrared. I do actually have one, but again, it's back in the UK, about 6,000 miles away, so not very accessible. You just put the receiver on the hot shoe, and using the transmitter you could activate the shutter remotely. Obviously with this camera you need to wind on the film manually each time, so if you're using that remote control you'd need to have either a power winder A2, which I have in the UK, or a motor drive MA, so that every time the shutter is released the camera then automatically winds on the film. Canon also came out with a similar version for the T-series cameras, and I think they also worked with the early EOS cameras. This was called an LC2. Again, it was infrared. You just put the receiver on the camera, and then using the transmitter you could control the camera remotely. And there was an additional feature over the LC1. If you pointed the transmitter at the receiver, there was an infrared beam And if that beam was broken, the camera would fire automatically. So for example, if you were photographing wildlife, you could set the camera up on a trowel and have the receiver on one side of the trowel and the transmitter on the other. And when the animal passed through the beam, it will break the beam and then fire the camera automatically, which is quite nice. But so I never had any experience of that. I only had the LC1 for the A1. Okay, I hope that's helped, and I'll be doing more videos about my old film gear soon.